Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. Boy, do we have a session for you guys today. Whew. So just make sure whatever you're doing, just try to stop whatever it is that you're doing and just sit back and listen to how this episode is going to unfold and where we are in terms of our tafseer of Surah Al-Qasas. Remember, this story reveals itself just like you're sitting in a cinema and you're just watching a scene after scene after scene unfold before your very eyes. So those of you that are tuning in for the first time, we have begun Surah Al-Qasas. We've talked about a lot of different things in the previous episode, so I really encourage you that if you haven't already done so, try to make some time and look at that, insha'Allah ta'ala. So let's continue. Now that Fir'aun has started killing babies, particularly the sons, and we'll show you why a little bit later, or actually in this next verse, we'll show you why that happened, and tortured people. He's got his security team going at every single door, looking and listening for babies. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the midst of all of this, says, this is verse number 5, وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً وَنَجْعَلُهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. We had desired and wished that all those who were weak, frail, and old, who had no power, no voice, no status, we wanted them in the land. We wanted them to be the ones, وَنَجْعَلُهُمْ أَئِمَّةً, to be the leaders. You know, this ayah is amazing, because for the Prophet ﷺ, when he's receiving these ayat, it's such an enormous source of encouragement, because he's poor, he's from amongst the weak, he doesn't have the status or the authority amongst the Meccans as he had wanted to. Nobody's listening to him. They're trying to persecute him. They're trying to kick him out of the city. Everywhere he goes, he's subject to some kind of pain or struggle. You know, they're throwing rocks at him. They're calling him names. There's propaganda all against him. So he's considered the weak. And all of his followers, all of the companions, each of them have their own story of struggle. They have no money, no power, no wealth, no status, nothing. Just a handful of them had that. So the fact that Allah says, we wanted and desired for the weak to eventually become leaders. This is one of the reasons why Fir'aun targeted the sons in particular and killed all of the boy children. Why? Because he knew that this was the future. He knew, and remember the previous episode, he knew that if unity came and they all mobilized themselves together and they began to cooperate, he knew that his leadership was at risk and he couldn't allow that risk to happen. So this is why he wanted to cut off the bloodline of future leaders. Subhanallah. Remember I told you, he's an evil genius. So he wanted to cut off the bloodline and make sure that no future leadership was in the works. وَنَجْعَلُهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we will make those same individuals who were weak, we will get them and we will make them inheritors. You know, this is quite important and significant in the Meccan period, because before inheritance was revealed for women and for children, that they could inherit and wives could inherit and certain parts of the extended family could inherit, none of that existed. And the Quraysh, only the famous leaders of tribes and people who had, a high status in society and in the political ladder, only those individuals could inherit. And that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had revealed certain verses in Surah An-Nisa that gave permission now that others can inherit as well. Others could inherit. So, وَنَجْعَلُهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ was a big deal, at least when the Prophet ﷺ is receiving this message. But also, in context, this is already hinting to what, guys? What's Allah hinting to? To inherit, what must happen to the person you're inheriting from? What must happen to them? They have to die. Inheritance is, you're inheriting wealth of somebody who's passed away. So Allah is already hinting that the kingdom and power of Fir'aun, what's going to eventually happen to it? It's going to end. Just like all authority and power and kingship in the history of mankind. When you talk about all the Hitlers that came out, the Mussolinis that came along, all these individuals that caused chaos after chaos, that caused bloodshed after bloodshed with their people, with their civilization at their times, what eventually happened? It came to an end, and Allah destroyed those leaders and destroyed their legacy. So Allah is hinting to the fact that it's the same thing that's going to happen to Fir'aun, that eventually he will pass on, and these individuals whom he deemed to be the weak and the useless will actually be the ones that will inherit his legacy and his kingdom, but not necessarily the same way, no, but they will eventually take over, subhanallah. So Fir'aun, you still lose at the end of the day. It's only Quran does it, subhanallah. Okay. وَنُمَكِّنَ لَهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنُرِيَ فِرْعَوْنَ وَهَامَانَ. So we gave them a specified time. We allowed them to remain on the land. وَنُرِيَ فِرْعَوْنَ وَهَامَانَ وَجُنُودَهُمَا مِنْهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يَحْذَرُونَ. And we showed Fir'aun and Haman. Haman was an associate. His name is mentioned 6 times in the Quran. And he was an associate to Fir'aun. So he was part of his administration. Okay? And there's a lot of discussion about who he was, even if he existed. Only the Quran mentions his name. No other scriptures mention or allude to him. So some other religions scrutinize that the Quran makes a mistake here by mentioning the name of this individual. We're going to talk about him a little bit later, inshallah. وَجُنُودَهُمَا. And both of their armies. مِنْهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يَحْذَرُونَ. From what they used to be afraid of, what they used to be concerned about. What are they concerned about? They're concerned about future leadership. They're concerned about unity, people coming together. So that's the first scene. So what's happened here so far, guys? I want you to, again, just imagine you're sitting in front of the screen and you click episode 1, you're done with it. Now we're in episode 2. The first scene is starting to unveil itself. You have, you have individuals walking, you have the security team going at each and every one of the homes, listening for a child or a baby crying. As soon as they hear a baby crying, what do? They jump into the house, take out the child, right? And torture and beat the parents. And then go to the next house and the next house and the next house. So that's the scene that's happening. It's like one of those zombie movies, right? The zombies are going by each home. People are in there, they're locked up, they're trying to stay safe, but they're trying to sniff out the scent of a human being out there. And as soon as they can smell the scent, they jump in, they break into the house, and they do what they need to do, right? And if they don't, they keep moving on, and moving on. So that's the first scene. It's pretty chaotic. It's pretty horrific. We've learned now about who Fir'aun was, the things that he used to do, how he controlled Bani Israel, how he divided them so they could be against each other. All of this crazy drama. Now look what happens next. Now you shift from the scene where these security guards are going from home to home. And look what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does next. وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمِّ مُوسَىٰ أَنْ أَرْضِعِي. And we inspired the mother of Musa that she feed him. Think about that. You just went from all this chaos, and now the scene switches to a mom. And she's sitting in her home and she's completely terrified because she can hear the cries. She can hear the pleading of all the parents that their children are being slaughtered right in front of their eyes and they can't do anything. She's hearing all of this. So what do you think a mother does? She's terrified. She's sitting there and she's just out of her mind. What is she going to do? What is she going to do? And the thing here is, why did Allah tell her to feed her child? Because Musa alayhi salam as a baby here, he's crying. He's a pretty loud baby. And you're going to see that later on in the story. He's a loud baby. So she's trying to settle him down. She doesn't know what to do. What we're learning here is this is a different type of inspiration, wahi, given to the righteous people. So Musa alayhi salam, his mom, now is being inspired. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving her instructions. Okay, feed the child. Why do you feed the child when the child is crying? Because the child might be hungry, and that's the best way to quiet down and settle the child. All parents know this. Anybody who's a parent out there, you know exactly. You know, you might be in a mall, you might be sitting in, in a library somewhere, you might be sitting in a lecture or at a conference and your baby starts crying. And what do? You feed the child. That's what all parents do. All mothers know this trick, if you want to call it that, right? It settles the child immediately. So she's told to feed this child. Musa alayhi salam now calms down. And then she hides the child. Right? So just take a look, right? You know, she's starting to feed the child, and then she props herself up and she hides and tucks the child in such a way, and she just sits there. The security team now, the security forces are there listening to hear if they hear the slightest smirk or the slightest sound of a baby. And they come inside. Again, just think about how this plays out. All right, think about a show or a movie that you've seen in the past, right? You have these evil forces that come in, they break into your house, and there's a leader, there's a gang leader in the front, and he stands in front of everybody and he's looking around in your home. And he's looking around and he's seeing that he probably sees some kids' toys. He probably sees some kids' clothing. He sees some food for children. But he sees no baby. It's just this mother standing up like this, and she's not moving. So immediately the leader says to himself, something's not right. Something doesn't make sense. But they don't see a child. And every mother in a situation like this, they're terrified. فَإِذَا خِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ فَإِذَا خِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ. So what ends up happening is these security forces now, they don't see the child, they leave. But then something doesn't make sense and they start to come back. So as they leave, they start hitting more homes. So they walk out of the house of Musa alayhi salam. You and I, the viewers, right? We're like, oh my God, they're going to catch her. They're going to catch her. They're going to find Musa. It didn't happen. At least not the first time. Now, when she finishes feeding her child is still not settled. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do next? Right? She's still terrified. So Allah says, فَإِذَا خِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ. If you're scared, which she was terrified. Allah says, فَأَلْقِيهِ فِي الْيَمِّ. Students who were with me in Surah Taha, didn't we see this verse? فَأَلْقِيهِ فِي الْيَمِّ. فَقْذِفِيهِ فِي الْيَمِّ is what we saw in Surah Taha. Put him in a basket and throw him into the river. You know, the river back then was like the 401 that we have today. So that's the 401 of Egypt. That's the highway. So it's how you move from one place to another. So throw him and let the river يلقيه في اليم فألقيه في اليم يأخذه بالساحل يأخذه عدو لي وعدو له. So the waves are going to start pushing this basket away. Now, here's the thing, guys. Oh, unbelievable. What would a mother be thinking at this point? What is going on in her mind, in her heart? You know, she is so terrified that she's going to get caught with her son. So she feeds her child. And the child now is still not settled. All the other children of her neighbors and the rest of the village, all of them have been killed. So even if she ends up sparing her child, later on the following day, how is she going to walk in the marketplace? You know, she's going to have to find a babysitter. Who's going to find a babysitter? Because then people are going to know, wait a minute, you still have your kid? Our kids got killed and you still have yours? Like, this doesn't make it. It doesn't make any sense. So she is terrified, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَلْقِيهِ فِي الْيَمِّ. Throw him into the river. وَلَا تَخَافِي وَلَا تَحْزَنِي. Don't be afraid and don't grieve. Don't be sad over this. Now, you go from being terrified that your child will be killed, and now you have to take your child and throw him into a river. How do you settle down? How do you relax? You know, and she's told to just throw the child and leave it and walk away. This can only happen from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because a mother in a real life scenario, mother, she'll be like, I'm going down with my child. Take me and take my child. I'm not letting you go. She's going to sacrifice herself with her child. This is only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is Allah giving strength to a mother that only He can give, and she won't get it from anywhere else but Him. Subhanallah. And then Allah says, Inna radduhu ilayk. Don't worry. We're going to deliver him back to you. Inna, Allah is saying, I'll deliver him back to you. So that calms her down just a little. وَجَاعِلُوهُ مِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. And we're going to make him from amongst the noble messengers. So this is where she starts to feel like, okay, Allah's going to return him back to me. Okay, fine. Can you imagine what her conversations would be like? So now her son is gone. She threw him into the river. Now she's with the ladies and the rest of the villagers the next day and the following day and what have you. And she's like, yeah, I threw my child in the river though. They didn't kill him. But he's going to be returned to me. Allah is going to deliver him back to me. How would the rest of the villagers look at her? Like, whoa, something's wrong with this lady. Yeah, he's going to be returned, don't worry. And that's, to me, it's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable. That's the kind of iman mothers can have. When mothers keep a relationship with Allah, and they talk to Allah, and they do all the things that you and I do, but they do it in such a way that every single mother that prays is thinking about her children. Every mother that makes dua will make dua for her children. It's like an autopilot. It's ingrained in her that she thinks about her child anywhere and everywhere. You know, all mothers, you know, when you go out with your family, when you go to the mall and you walk into a clothing store, usually what's the first section in the clothing store that the mother goes to? She goes to the kids section. And even the husband was like, you actually needed a jacket, so you're over here. She's like, yeah, but look how cute this is. This would look good on her. This will look so cute on him. It's unbelievable. It's just something that is engraved in her, her connection with her child. And once she uses that to help her stay close to her Creator, Allah will bless her with a strength no one and nothing on this planet can give her. Nothing. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Well, what if I don't have a child? What if I can't get a child? You know, what you don't have or what you can't get that's beyond your control is not your fault. So you still continue with your relationship with Allah. Don't hold yourself accountable for the things you can't control and blame yourself for it. Because Allah is not blaming you. Allah is not telling you, hey, you can't have children, so too bad you miss out. No. Allah is the one that's in charge of giving you the child in the first place. So if He didn't give you that child, then don't beat yourself on the head for something that you know comes from Him anyway. So don't say, I don't have one, subhanAllah. No, don't pity yourself for something you can't control. So my point here is, what I'm trying to get at is that the relationship that a mother has, or a wife has, or a woman has with Allah is very different. It's very different in the sense of how she communicates with Allah as opposed to how men do this. Let me give you another example. Khuwaila bint Tha'laba radiyallahu anha. She was a famous woman. Even Umar radiyallahu anh respected and loved her. And a surah was revealed on her behalf because why? She took a lot of abuse, physical abuse from her husband. And so she went to the Prophet ﷺ. She complained to him that my husband's beating me, he's being abusive to me, he's done so many things to me. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals a verse about this whole conversation she has with the Messenger ﷺ. He reveals the verse, قَدْ سَمِعَ اللَّهُ قَوْلَ الَّتِي تُجَادِلُكَ فِي زَوْجِهَا وَتَشْتَكِي إِلَى اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ يَسْمَعْ تَحَاوَرَكُمَا. Pause. Allah says, indeed I can hear the complaint that's happening from this woman to the Prophet ﷺ. What happens here? She's complaining about her marriage to this man. And Allah intervenes and takes over the conversations and says, I hear your complaint. I know what you're going through. You know, it's remarkable. There's this kind of connection and attention that she'll get that for whatever reason, men won't have, or they have to work for it in a different way. And so we're seeing hints of this as well. Allah is taking special care of her. وَجَاعِلُوهُ مِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. Don't you worry, we're going to return him back to you, and we're going to make him a leader. We're going to make him amongst the messengers. Now, this basket is continuous. It continues flowing down this river. And it's going past different villages, and everybody's just like, oh, there goes a basket. Then it comes up to this beautiful palace. Now, I'm going to pause here. Do you guys think, or can you remember a surah where something similar is happening? Where a child goes missing, is thrown into water, and then is taken to a castle or a palace? Surah Yusuf. This is why the scholars say that Surah Al-Qasas, the sister surah, is Surah Yusuf. It starts off with a child. Child goes missing. Here, child goes missing. Over there in Surah Yusuf, Yusuf a.s. is thrown into the water, except it's a well. This child is thrown into a river. Over there, eventually Yusuf a.s. is picked up by a man and his wife, the Aziz, the minister of Egypt, as well as his wife. And over here, who's going to pick him up? Musa alayhi salam. Let's see. فَالْتَقَطَهُ آلُ فِرْعَوْنَ لِيَكُونَ لَهُمْ عَدُوًّا وَحَزَنًا. فَالْتَقَطَهُ, الْتَقَطَ, literally means when you find something on the road that shouldn't be there, and you go and you pick it up, you're like, what's this? When you take kids to the beach and they pick up rocks and shells, and you're like, what's this? Where did this come from? That's iltaqata. So somehow this basket just floats by. And women out there, by the palace, they probably are outside, they're washing things, they're sitting by the river, they're sitting on benches and whatever. And one of them notices this basket is going by. She's like, whoa, what's that? آلُ فِرْعَوْنَ لِيَكُونَ لَهُمْ عَدُوًّا وَحَزَنًا. When she picks up this basket, they have no idea that what is in the basket is eventually going to be an enemy and cause grief to Fir'aun. This baby. So it's just a baby, but this baby is going to bring so much chaos for them. It's going to turn the palace upside down. From all of the destruction and corruption that they've caused, this baby is going to turn things around. That's what Allah is hinting here. إِنَّ فِرْعَوْنَ وَهَامَانَ وَجُنُودَهُمَا كَانُوا خَاطِئِينَ. Fir'aun and Haman and all of their armies and groups, they were so wrong about this child. Okay? وَقَالَتِ امْرَأَةُ فِرْعَوْنَ. So the wife of Fir'aun, who is she, by the way? Who's the wife of Fir'aun? Asiya bint Muzahim radiyallahu anha. Now, this woman, we can do a whole biography of her. I mean, she is remarkable. And remember, she is afraid of her husband. And not once in the Quran or in any hadith does she actually say, my husband. She keeps referring to him as Fir'aun. There is no us between Asiya and Fir'aun. She never refers to herself as us, meaning me and my husband. And you'll see that in a second. وَقَالَتِ امْرَأَةُ فِرْعَوْنَ. So the wife of Fir'aun, Asiya radiallahu anha, she found this baby. So she opens the basket and she sees this beautiful child. And you know what ends up happening to her? قُرَّةُ عَيْنٍ لِي وَلَكَ. Now remember, the guards are looking for babies. And they know, they can see by the complexion, the skin, the color of this child, that this child is not an Egyptian child. This is a child from the Israelites. This is a Bani Israel child. So they know, they take the child now. The guards come and take it to Fir'aun. When they see this child, like, whoa, okay, let's take it to Fir'aun, see what he says. When Fir'aun finds and looks at the child and sees that it's a Bani Israel child, he's like, yeah, kill it. And the wife says, no, he's my child, I'm keeping him. And Fir'aun says that we should kill him. No, I'll talk to Fir'aun, don't worry about him. I'll go to Fir'aun. She takes the Musa alayhi salam to Fir'aun, and look what she says. قُرَّةُ عَيْنٍ لِي. Qurra literally means that, your eyes stare and they get fixated at something. Qurra also means that you're so pleased. Qurra also means that tears of joy. So she looks at this baby and she can't get her eyes off of this baby. And she starts crying of tears of joy, how beautiful and perfect. This child makes her feel so good inside. But look what she says. It's making my eyes fixated, قُرَّةُ عَيْنٍ li, me, as well as you. Lak. She doesn't say, look what it's doing to us. Subhanallah, she doesn't put herself as us with her own husband, subhanallah. And remember, she's afraid of him. Right? She knows what he's about. That's why in another surah, Surah Tahrim, she says, وَنَجِّنِي مِن فِرْعَوْنَ وَعَمَلِي. Save me from Fir'aun and his actions. So she knows what kind of husband she has. She doesn't associate herself as a wife. But now even Fir'aun looks at a child and be like, it is kind of cute. So now they decide to keep the child. لا تقتلوه. She says, don't kill him. عسى أن ينفعنا أو نتخذه ولدا. Perhaps he might benefit us. Or we can adopt this child. وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. And they can't understand and comprehend or feel what's about to happen. Again, this ayah, this sentence, which surah did this sentence come from? Where did we get that ayah from? عَسَىٰ أَن يَنفَعْنَا أَوْ نَتَّخِذَهُ وَلَدًا وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. The exact same sentence came hundreds of years before with the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, which is happening in what country, students? In Egypt. Where is this happening? In Egypt. Subhanallah. Only Allah, even for the kuffar, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can make a disbeliever say the exact same thing generations apart. Unbelievable. Only Quran does this, subhanallah. So they're saying the exact same thing. Now, here in this ayah, you have a husband and wife, right? That are saying this. They find this child. In Surah Yusuf, they find this child at a marketplace being sold as a slave. Yusuf alayhi salam. The husband and the wife both say, yeah, perhaps it might benefit us or we can adopt it. And they're saying, a husband and wife is saying the exact same thing. So it's not even the sentence is the same. The context is the same. The people involved are exactly the same. Subhanallah. وَأَصْبَحَ فُؤَادُ أُمِّ مُوسَى فَارِغًا. Now the scene shifts back. Okay, let's take a break from Asiya and let's take a break from Fir'aun. Let's go back now. What about the mom? What's happening to her? How's she feeling in all of this? وَأَصْبَحَ فُؤَادُ أُمِّ مُوسَى فَارِغًا. The heart of Musa. Fu'ad is another word in the Quran for a heart. So the heart of Musa, of the mother of Musa alayhi salam, her heart is empty. You know, Fu'ad is used, and Allah describes it, farigha, empty. It's like when the mother is sitting and she's like this. She's grieving inside. She can't eat. She can't sleep. And only mothers know, like if your child is in a hospital but you can't be with them. Or if you really want to understand this ayah, students, if you really want to internalize what this ayah, what it's trying to capture, talk to a mother who has lost a child. And then you'll get an idea of how the mother of Musa alayhi salam feels here. Just talk to a mother. And then she'll tell you, she'll try to tell you how she feels. So the mother of Musa alayhi salam is just sitting there, empty, lost. She can't speak, she can't do anything. She's doing what any mother does. Just worry and grieve. Where is my son? Where's my child? Is he okay? Who got him? Where? How? Can you imagine if she knew at this point that the enemy, the worst of the worst, Fir'aun, has her child, how she would feel? You know, she goes from trying to feed the child because she's terrified. Then she's told to take the child, throw it into a river, and the child ends up in the one place she hopes he will never end up. Because, you know, the hopes is that when parents give up, like, you ever watch those, like, shows where parents, when they were young or whatever, they gave up their child for adoption. And then 50 years later, they're looking for that child. The hopes for that child is always that hopefully they found a good home. Good parents are taking care of them. And if they reunite later on in life, how are you? It's like, yeah, I had good family. I had good parents. But in this case here, can you imagine if the mother of Musa found out Fir'aun has your baby? What she would be thinking? The amount of stress it would add to her grief that she's already experiencing, the emptiness she's already feeling. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِن كَادَتْ لِتُبْدِي بِهِ لَوْلَا أَرَّبَطْنَا عَلَى قَلْبِهَا لِتَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. She almost gave her secret out. إِن كَادَتْ لِتُبْدِي بِهِ. She almost gave it out. She almost told her secret to others. Actually, you know what really happened? Yeah, I put my child in a basket. But she didn't do that. She didn't. She almost did. You know, she just wants to let out some of that grief. لَوْلَا أَرَّبَطْنَا. If it wasn't for us that we kept her heart together, under control. Allah is doing this, by the way. لِتَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And as a result, she will have a level of iman like none other. So as a result that she kept herself together, she didn't give out her secret, she didn't go crazy, she didn't lose control, none of that. She kept herself composed. Because of that level of self-control, Allah is saying here, we will make her from amongst the believers a status that no one else will ever have. Subhanallah. Last verse, guys. وَقَالَتْ لِأُخْتِهِ قُصِّي. So she said to her daughter, follow it. قُصِّي. قُصِّي, follow the trail of that basket. She doesn't give no other instructions, by the way. Which tells us that this kid that she sends, her daughter that she sends, this is somebody that is extremely smart. And we're going to learn more about her later on, how clever she was when she followed this basket. You know, and that's the thing about Surah Al-Qasas. There are certain women, there's a bunch of them actually, that are highlighted in the surah. It's going to blow your mind. You're just going to be like, oh my God, look at what these women can do. Look at the status. Look at the strength. My goodness. You know, we often hear about, you know, the Quran doesn't speak much about women or doesn't explain this or explain that. Hopefully by the end of this series, your mind will change. If that's what you believe, your mind will change. You're going to see for yourself who women truly are in this Quran. The status and the gift and the strength that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them. So we're going to hear more about this lady a little bit later on. So all she says was, "Qussi, go follow it." So she was brilliant. So her daughter now follows this basket. فَبَصُرَتْ بِهِ عَنْ جُنُوبٍ وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. So she kept her eyes on it. She kept her eyes on it. She kept following this basket until it got to the palace. عَنْ جُنُوبٍ وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. And nobody knew or had a clue that she was following this basket. She's so clever, subhanAllah. You know, she's, you know, the river's over there. And she's just walking, hey, how's it going? Good morning, guys. You know, and she's walking into the marketplace. She's passing village after village after village. And she knows the basket is right over there. Hey, good morning. How's everybody? How's your family? It's good to see you. And meanwhile, whatever eyes فَبَصُرَتْ. It's just like, yeah. And she looks out like she's pretending she's looking out on the sunset and sunrise and all of that stuff. And she's actually blend in. Nobody has a clue. No one has a clue what she's really doing. We're going to pause there because next we're going to see now what's going to happen with Musa alayhi salam and how the process is going to start to reveal itself of what Fir'aun and his wife, what they're going to do with this child, how they're going to care for this child, and as Musa alayhi salam continues to grow and mature. This is just the beginning, guys. We're only in the second episode, subhanallah. And this surah is full of so much rich detail and takes you step by step through this story. And it's going to fill in and add more detail to the story of Musa than what Surah Taha did. So if you really want to capture in full detail the story of Musa alayhi salam, then stick with us tomorrow inshaAllah ta'ala around the same time. We'll continue from verse number 11 onwards bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. The iman of a mother is like no other. When she has iman, that iman trickles down to everyone else in the house. Everyone in the house will see it, will recognize it, will know, man, mom, you're strong. You're tough. If that was me, I'd break into pieces. But man, subhanAllah, you're tough. You know, I want to share with you guys last point. It's a personal story, just so that you understand how important this connection with a mother is with respect to her iman. When I was a student in Medina, I was there for almost 10 years. And I tell students this all the time. It was the best, worst years of my life. It was the best because I was in Medina. I mean, I was born there, but I got a chance to go back and study there. So I'm studying the deen in the city of the Prophet ﷺ, right? All those blessings, all those wonderful things you can think about with Medina is there. But then it was also the worst years of my life because it was painful to be separated from family. It was painful to be separated. I mean, I remember I left the airport for the first time, and my little sister, I picked her up, I gave her a kiss at the airport. She's crying, I'm crying, whatever. She's a little kid. And I left. The next time I see her, she's graduating high school. Right? So I missed chunks of years of all of their lives. I see some gray on my mom and my dad, and when I come back, they're almost fully grayed. And it was really painful in that sense. Just missed that the homesickness used to torture me, both mentally, emotionally, psychologically. But I got through it. And every year I came back, I had to scrape myself out of my home to get back there and keep going. But I couldn't do it alone. My mother was the one that called me regularly. She spent thousands of dollars on long distance bills just to be like, it's okay, we're all okay, keep studying, keep doing this, keep doing that. And so the person that you see and you hear, and I'm able to do these things, is of course after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a result of my mom. That the fact that she would call me and encourage me and keep pushing me. One year she actually had to hold my hand and drag me into the airport. Like I didn't want to go, because I was just so emotionally torn apart to leave my family behind. And she kept kind of like pulling me, and she's like, don't worry, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. As soon as you get there, call me or I'll call you and everything's going to be fine. And subhanAllah, now I can see the fruits and the barakah of that. If it wasn't for her, I think after my first year, I would have just come back home and never returned. But because of her, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave her a strength to encourage and to push me. That 1 year turned into almost 10. So don't underestimate, brothers and sisters. If you have your mother in particular with you, but if you have parents with you and they're a good source of encouragement and supportive of you, that you really, really nourish and care that relationship. And those of you who don't have your parents with you, that's okay. You have those memories and you have those words of encouragement. You have those thoughts and memories of when you were young and when they were with you, of the things they used to say that help you till this day. You know, all of our mothers have those kinds of stories. When my mom was alive, she used to tell me to do this and to do that. That's why I'm telling it to you. And you're passing on the same tradition. You're passing on the same advice. So you still have a piece of your parents with you. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love, protect, honor and bless our mothers, al-ahya'i minhum wal-amwat, those that are with us and those that have passed away. Allahumma ameen. These are the words I leave you with. I apologize, guys. This is a really long episode. I don't even know how long this is. Can I see that? I can't see that right now. Okay. It's a longer than usual episode, but I hope that you could appreciate some of the things that we talked about, and join me again tomorrow, inshaAllah ta'ala, as we continue our journey through Surah Al-Qasas, bi'ithnillahi ta'ala. Jazakumullahu khairan, guys. May Allah Azza wa Jal bless you all wherever you are. Allahumma ameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.